Good afternoon, folks. Now, today's discussion B is dealing with poor communication at the with the end of life care. So we're going to discuss that for B. So please join me for today's discussion B. Okay, here we go. The silence that wounds. How poor communication creates avoidable distress at the end of life. Okay. The first thing Miss Hammond noticed was the quiet, not the peaceful kind, but the heavy, disorientating quiet that fills a hospital room when no one tells you what's happening. Her husband had been admitted 3 days earlier with complications from advanced heart failure. The team spoke in fragments. He's fragile. We're watching closely. Let's see how he responds. No one said he was dying. So when his breathing changed, shallow, irregular, punctuated by long pauses, she panicked. She pressed the call button. Then ran into the hallway, clutching the rail as if the building itself might steady her. A nurse arrived, kind but hurried, and said softly, "He's transitioning." It was the first time anyone had spoken the truth. By the time she understood, it was already too late. The human cost of what goes unsaid. End of life communication failures rarely look like dramatic mistakes. They look like euphemisms. They look like delayed conversations. They look like clinicians circling the truth, hoping the patient will intuit what they cannot bring themselves to say. They look like families left to decipher. Cryptic faces, not doing well. The next few days will be important. We are concerned. But the consequences are not subtle. Patient loses the chance to make decisions that reflect their values. Families lose the chance to gather, to reconcile, to prepare. Clinicians lose the chance to provide care aligned with what matters most. And everyone loses time, the one resource that cannot be restored. The silence becomes its own form of suffering. It is not just anecdotal. Recent ombudsman cases show families blinded by terminal news delivered too late or too vaguely, leading to trauma that lingers long after the funeral. These cases echo what palliative clinicians have known for decades. Poor communication is not benign, it is harmful. Why clinicians hesitate to speak plainly? The reasons are familiar: fear of causing distress, fear of being wrong, fear of taking away hope, time pressure in acute care settings, cultural norms that treat death as a medical failure, lack of structured training in serious illness communication. But beneath these lies, a deeper truth. We underestimate the resilience of patients and families and overestimate the harm of honesty. Most people do not break when they hear they are dying. They reorient, they gather themselves, they ask different questions, they make different choices, they become, in many ways, more themselves. What breaks them is finding out too late, a moment that should have been different. I think often a I think often of a patient I cared for years ago, a retired machinist with a quiet sense of humor and a deep love for his garden. His cancer spread quickly, and the team hesitated to tell him the full extent. They wanted to wait for more information, see how he responds, give him time. But time was the one thing he didn't have. When the truth finally came, he nodded slowly and said, I wish I'd known. I would have liked to see my tomatoes one last time. It was such a small wish, and it was entirely achievable. But the silence stole it from him. What good communication looks like. Good end of life communication is not a single conversation. It's a it is a posture a willingness to be present, to be clear, to be brave. It sounds like I'm worried you are dying. I want to talk about this, what this means, and what matters most to you. You are not alone in this. It is honest. It is honest without being harsh. It is compassionate without being vague. It is the kind of communication that allows families to step into into the final chapter with clarity rather than confusion. It is also the kind of communication that prevents avoidable distress, the kind now documented on ombudsman reports, patient complaints, and heartbreaking testimonies from families who learned the truth only when it was too late to act on it. The systematic roots of failure, end of life communication failures, are not simply individual clinician shortcomings. They are symptoms of structural gaps, lack of standardized communication frameworks, absence of clear triggers for serious illness conversations, under-resourced palliative care teams, fragmented messaging across specialties. Documentation practices that obscure rather than clarify goals of care. These failures are predictable and therefore preventable. The moral imperative to speak the truth, to speak plainly about dying, is to acknowledge the limits of what medicine can fix. It is to step into the scared space where cure is no longer possible and humanity becomes the primary mode of care. It is to offer the one thing that still matters when time is short, the truth delivered with tenderness. Patients deserve that. Families deserve that. And clinicians, though they may not always believe it, are capable of giving it. The final word. Miss Hammond's husband died. She sat quietly beside him, holding his hand. She whispered that she wished she had known. She wished she had she wished she had known, wished she had said more, wished she had been prepared. Her grief was not only for his death, but for the way it unfolded, shouldered in uncertainty, shaped by omission, softened by euphemism, that ultimately hardened her suffering. Her story is not rare, but it is preventable. We cannot stop death, but we can stop the silence that makes it harder. Okay, guys, that is B for you. I'm going to take a little break and then I'll be back on with C. For now, Gator Wellness. Take care, folks.